right, thank you. I'm just checking my headset here, getting everything set up. So just wanted to thank everyone for attending the open house, virtual open house this year, thanks to COVID-19. So this is our second session of the day. We had a session earlier this morning, so we're just going to run through the information again and then open it up to questions. So I'll just start by providing a bit of an overview of the budget process here and then get into the PowerPoint presentation. And if I can just ask everyone to, if possible, mute their microphones right now, that would be great. And I will start sharing my screen in a second here and we'll get underway. Okay, can everyone see the presentation?
No.
Okay, 1 second. Didn't get control. Sorry, bear with me 1 more second here. Try one more time. Apologies, here we go. I think this should be coming up in a second. Yet. Full size, there we go, is that better?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you, sorry. Okay, well, first I just wanted to start off by thanking everyone for joining us for the budget open house taking place this evening. We are privileged to be meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the Sauk Nation. My name is Rachel Gray. I'm the Director of Finance. And I just wanted to briefly touch on the order of activities for this session. We'll be beginning with an introduction about the budget process. Department leads will share highlights of key projects currently captured in the 2021 budget. And then we will answer resident questions. Some questions have already been submitted in advance. And if there's any further questions that arise due to the information presented today, staff will be on hand to respond to those as well. The purpose of today's session is to learn about the opportunities and constraints the district is faced with heading into another ambitious year, and a year where we continue to respond to the global pandemic. Council identified the district's mission to be a compassionate, engaged, and effective organization, providing excellent public services to the citizens by maintaining our strong sense of identity, managing our growth for generations to come, and making local making our local economy diverse and resilient. The district manages an annual budget of $9.1 million in 2021 is the forecasted budget, and provides municipal services and infrastructure that touch many aspects of daily life. These services include road and district maintenance, sewer system management, policing, fire, department operations, bylaw, parks and trails care, and development and building and planning services. Today we're going to be talking about how your money is spent and how we are addressing the needs of today while also planning for the future. The projects and services that take place in the district influence our local economy through jobs, whether those are district positions or with contracts being awarded, and creating spaces that enhance Sauk's ability to develop a stronger local economy. In addition to the noted services areas, the district also provides funding to local organizations for the benefit of the community. We have certainly seen these organizations step up in a very big way during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Sud Food Bank, for example, who supports many local families in need, is one example. The list would be long to name them all, but I'm sure many have seen the results of their efforts and how important they are to Sooke. Throughout the year, long-range planning and research inform the district's budget. We have also have the benefit of being informed by your participation in the September Citizen Budget Survey and through the development of the Transportation and Parks and Trails Master Plans, which Council approved in October. Thank you to those of you who participated throughout those processes and who are participating again today. The annual budget process allows us to look at our plans comprehensively and determine how we execute these plans and maintain our core service delivery in the most fiscally responsible way. Each year is a continual balancing act to maintain core services and respond to our growing community. In spite of a pandemic, our assets and infrastructure mature, and there are cost pressures to maintain the existing infrastructure while also developing new infrastructure. So with that, I will go and start with a general overview of some of the sections included in the 2021 to 2025 financial plan, and then I will turn it over to the department leads who again will highlight the key projects currently identified in the 2021 budget. At the end of the presentation, as I stated earlier, we will get into specific questions we've received. So just a quick overview is I will be presenting some information on the consolidated summary, debt servicing, reserve transfers, revenue, and the 2021 high-level look at the 2021 to 2025 capital plan as further department heads will be providing further detailed information on the capital projects. So just a quick overview of the consolidated summary. This pie chart shows the breakdown by expenses per department. And so I'll just kind of touch on each line here. The council budget, proposed budget for 2021 is $526,425, which represents 5.7% of the overall budget. The CAO department's budget is $365,342, and that represents 4% of the annual budget. The office administration department represents $232,000, $232,988, and that represents 2.5% of the annual budget. Just wanted to quickly back up for 1 second here. Included in the council's budget would be over $300,000 that is paid out to community organizations through the annual community grant process, the various line items that are included in the budget, and the community service agreements. A couple of the bigger ticket items in the CAO budget would include the legal budget, which is currently forecasted in the budget at $137,700. As far as the office administration budget, one of their biggest inputs would be the property maintenance, which is budgeted at $125,000 for 2021. And that would be for property maintenance required to Municipal Hall, as well as any of our other various district assets, such as the Parks Yard down on Kaltassin. The next department would be Legislative Services. And their budget funded by property taxes is $546,528, which represents 5.9% of the overall budget for the district. And their budget includes some advertising and communication items, as well as they hold the office supplies budget for the district. As well included in their department would be the bylaw department. And the significant, and that their department is pretty lean, so they have budget for their vehicle as well as some professional development and the 2 bylaw positions that we have on staff. The finance department includes financial services and IT. Their total budget is $1.1 million, and that represents 12.3% budget. And a couple of the bigger ticket items included in that budget include that department holds the budget for the district insurance premiums, which is currently budgeted at $155,000. The information technology department, their biggest input on their budget would be software licensing, which is $140,000 per year. And that's to maintain all of the software licensing we need and for Office 365, other online cloud services so that the district can continue on with the business we're doing and do more business virtually. The operations department net budget funded by property taxes is $698,222, and that represents 7.6% of the total budget. One of the larger line items in their budget would be the highway maintenance contract, which is currently in the budget as $364,140 in 2021. The next budget represents the Parks Department at $921,942 for 2021, and that represents 10% of the overall budget funded by property taxes. The bigger ticket items in the Parks Department would be the materials and supplies and hazardous vegetation control and seasonal adornment budgets. Next, we have the police budget, which has a net property tax impact of $1.7 million or 18.8% of the budget. And this is for funding for the 70% portion that the district is required to pay for the RCMP officers. The next department would be the, in our community safety realm would be the fire department, which has a $2.3 million budget or 25.2% of the overall budget. And their larger ticket items outside of the staffing costs would be the volunteer costs as well as training and vehicle maintenance. It would be some of the larger inputs into their budget. The next department here would be planning and development, and their net budget would be $618,739, which represents 6.7% of the overall budget. Their department holds the budget for the official community plan, which is budgeted at $100,000 in 2021. And the final department is the communications department, which is a new department for the district in 2021, and their total budget funded by property taxes would be $106,393. And they now hold the advertising budget for the district. The total of all of these come up to the $9.1 million of property tax funding required to adequately fund the 2021 budget included in the 2021 to 2025 5-year financial plan. Next, I will touch on, just wanted to touch on some of the debt that the district is currently funding. So there's 3 separate debts for various fire truck purchases that were purchased over the last few years here. That includes the ladder truck, which has at December 31st, 2019, the closing balance was $295,000 on that loan, and that one matures in 2027. There is also $305,000 of debt for the water tender truck, and that debt matures in 2024. The new addition to the fire fleet this year was engine 1 replacement, and that represents $840,000 of debt, and that debt matures in 2025. For those 3 debts, the total annual debt payments is $292,000. There's a couple of other district-related debts currently, and that would include Lot A purchase, which has had a remaining balance of $426,000 in in December of 2019, and that debt will mature in 2021. Annual debt payments for that debt would be $143,000 per year. The final debt currently on the books would be for the sewer plant construction, and that debt current balance at December 2019 was $3.8 million, and that debt matures in 2026. And the annual debt payments for that debt are $450,000 per year. Currently, in the financial plan, new debt anticipated for 2023 is anticipated to fund the purchase of the replacement of fire engine 204. And in 2025, there is additional debt to fund the district portion of the significant roads projects that the district is hoping to apply for grants for, as well as have a portion funded by district funding. The other debt that potentially could be entered into would be debt for sewer expansion. This is unknown at this time, as the district is waiting for confirmation of grant funding that we have applied for in 2019. Just a brief touch on reserve transfers. So the transfers to reserve included in this budget are $4.7 million. Transfers from reserves are $5.4 million. So reserves are used to save money for future year projects, and most have specific bylaws attached to them that dictate which funds are deposited into the reserve and what the funds can be used for. Transfers to reserves are higher than average, which was normally around $2 million per year, and they're higher in 2021 due to the $2.9 million grant the district received for the COVID Safe Restart. And that money will be moved to the COVID-19 Safe Restart Reserve, as there's specific expenses that this funding can be used for. Some examples of transfers to reserves include and normally when the casinos were open, we would transfer $260,000 of casino revenue directly into the casino reserve fund. There's estimated to be $480,000 of roads and wastewater DCCs contributions, and DCCs can only be used for specific projects included in those DCC bylaws. And as a general contribution, the district contributes $295,000 annually to capital asset replacement reserve. The transfers from reserves includes $4.6 million in capital projects and $328,000 for COVID-related operating costs that will be coming out of the COVID Safe Restart Reserve. And a couple more slides here, and then I'll turn it over to our next presenter. So I just want to briefly touch on revenue. Not a lot of movement in the revenue for 2021. The additions that you will see in the budget include $20,000 added for Robbins parking, which will represent the revenue received for the Souk potholes pay parking that has been implemented in 2020. As well as based on building permit fees being received over the years, the building permit fees revenue is increasing $75,000 to $500,000 in 2021. And the same for the roads DCC contributions is increasing $100,000. And that is just due to continued growth. Revenue budgets for building permit fees and road DCCs are increasing in 2021. And as I stated earlier, the road DCCs are governed by a bylaw that can only be used for projects within that bylaw. And my last slide here before I'll turn it over to our CAO, Mr. McInnes. And I just will briefly touch on the capital projects. In 2021, there's $7.1 million of capital projects to be funded, and out of that, 0 projects are being funded with property tax. 2.5 million are grant contingent projects. 1.7 million is road DCC projects, and 1.4 million will be coming out of the gas tax reserve fund. That, I will turn it over to our CAO, Mr. McInnes, who can walk you through his department.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gray. The 4 areas that I'm going to report on tonight, I'm going to concentrate on the net impact of the 2021 budget over the 2020 budget. So the first area is the council budget, and the council budget will be decreased $10,000 this year. And that decrease comes from a reduced travel budget due to COVID-19. And we're all have our fingers crossed that sometime in 2021, it is certainly hopeful that we can get back to some of the in-person meetings, and for council, some of the governance training and networking that typically occurs at the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, and the Local Government Leadership Academy. Those networking opportunities and the training that our elected officials get from those opportunities are very important. And actually, we're seeing some of the the strains from not having those opportunities this year. That $10,000 decrease in the council budget equates to a 0.12 decrease in property taxes overall. The Office of the CAO budget, we do have a new position, a Community Economic Development Officer, which is funded through non-market growth. And there is a $15,000 increase in the budget for projects that will be undertaken by our newly formed Community Economic Development Committee, which will be constituted next Monday night on December 14th at our regular council meeting. The $15,000 increase is equal to a 0.17 increase in property taxes in 2021 over 2020. And if you are at all interested in what community economic development is, we're going to be following the framework of the Canadian Community Economic Development Network. And we have a quick slide here, or a video here to hopefully it's going to work for us to sort of show you the framework that that network uses.
Correct. I will stop sharing my screen and hopefully Ms. Mushada can play the link for you. 1 second here.
Yeah, it looks like we can see the pictures, but no sound. But I think we can keep this running and just look at the visuals. And I think that's good there. If we can go back to the slides, that would be good. It's a much more compelling video with sound. But hopefully you get the gist of it. This is a new line of business that was a council priority in the 2021 budget with the goal of creating jobs, but not in the traditional economic development way of business retention and attraction, but really more of a triple bottom line where the economy, the environmental issues and social issues are all considered as we try and grow some jobs and keep some pace with non-market growth as our community continues to grow on the residential side. Next slide, please. Human resources is another area that the Office of the CEO is responsible for, and there is a nominal $5,000 increase in the 2021 budget, and we have some turnover on our Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee and their required training every year for committee members. That increase equals a 0.06% property tax increase this year. And communications is a line of service that was created in the 2020 budget with a new position. Due to COVID, that position came on late in the year. So in 2021, we will be reallocating some of the expenses that were historically in other departments and creating a budget for communications. The net impact in 2021 is a $18,500 increase, equating to a 0.21 property tax increase in the 2021 budget. And that is it for my presentation. Ms. Machada, you are up.
I'm not sure if maybe Ms. Machado is having some technical difficulties there, but maybe I can probably cover some of her slides or her slide presentation here, unless her audio works out and she interrupts me in a second here. So as
didn't
far
get any sound from the video. My apologies. My mic got turned off. I'll start again. Good evening. My name is Carolyn Machada. I'm the Director of Corporate Services, responsible for two divisions, Legislative Services and Bylaw. Legislative Services provides services to council and all departments within the municipality. This includes administrative support for council meetings and committees. We are responsible for drafting and maintaining bylaws and policies, facilitating municipal elections, records management, and freedom of information for the municipality. In the budget this year, we have one capital project which will be funded from capital reserves for $58,500, which is the construction of a vault for record security with protection from smoke, fire, and water. I'm also responsible for the bylaw department. This department is responsible for the investigation of bylaw complaints, education of bylaws, and working towards compliance with members of our community. They are also responsible for business licensing. There are two capital projects in the budget this year for bylaw. Both are being funded from the COVID Relief Fund. So for both projects, there will be no property tax increase seen on your taxation. The first project is an e-bike in the amount of $3,500. This will allow our bylaw officers to be more visible in the community, getting out onto our trails and into our parks. And the second item is a new bylaw vehicle for $50,000. This will include the lighting that's required for our bylaw officers. And this is coming from the COVID Relief Fund, as the current direction under COVID is not to have more than one employee in a vehicle. So we are funding another one, as well as to increase visibility within the community. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Angel. I'm the Deputy Director of Finance. I'll be talking about the 2021 Finance Department budget. The finance budget consists of financial administration and information technology divisions. The financial administration divisions provides a full range of financial management services for the district, including accounting, auditing, financial planning, cash management, taxation, payroll, and insurance service. The main cost driver for financial administration, aside from what Ms. Gray just shared in her presentation, is the 5% increase in total salary and benefits. This is due to the division is finally fully staffed, and the inflation of benefit costs and annual union contract increases. Some of the improvement we will be making in 2021 are implementing the electronic payment for all vendors to lower administrative costs and minimize our carbon footprint. We will also be rolling out our new purchasing policy that was adopted by Council last night to the district. As part of the province's centralized homeowners grant initiative, we will be getting ready and transition into a completely new business process to streamline the application and adjudication of homeowners grant. The division will also be providing support to various internal department and external stakeholders for the multi-sport box project that's underway next year, as well as a number of the grant contingent projects, contingent capital projects. And we will also be working with the province to identify other potential projects that can utilize the $2 million funding that we receive under the COVID Restart Grant. In the service agreement and community grant area, we will continue to provide support for the applicants and recipients of the service agreement and community grant to better serve the community under the newly implemented policy. Last but not least, we will also be supporting the development of a new asset management policy along with Council's strategic goals. And on the information technology side, the division manages a wide variety of computer and technology service for the district. The main cost driver for the operating budget of this division is about 1.88% increase in salary and benefit due to the annual union contract increase. We will have a number of exciting new IT capital project next year, including the SCADA software hardware upgrades. Our wastewater system will be upgrading to a modern SCADA software platform. The upgrade will be, I'm sorry, the hardware will be also upgraded to run this new SCADA software. And with this upgrade, the system will have full feature redundancy. And the second project I want to share is the website refresh. Soup.ca will be refreshed and offer a more user-friendly layout and offer features so then the public can subscribe to updates on community events, council meetings, emergency updates, and these updates will provide a better foundation for community engagement. The next project IT will be working on is the council chamber online video upgrades. We will be upgrading the way that we stream the council meeting, so the public will be able to have a better experience when streaming the council meeting. With this upgrade in place, the public will be able to see exactly what the council and staff sees during the live meetings. Last major project IT is currently working on is working from home improvements. Due to COVID, the need to be able to working from home are increased. We will be upgrading all the infrastructure to have a more seamless, transparent working from home experience and build a resilient workplace. And that concludes the my presentation for the finance department. I'll hand over to Ms. Paulo from Planning and Development.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Paulo. I'm the Director of Planning and Development, responsible for leading the planning, subdivision, and building safety divisions of the department. On the planning side, what we have are standard tasks related to the official community plan, which is our highest level document for planning within the district, followed by the zoning bylaw, which is your common rezoning applications that come in for properties. As well, we administer the development permit and development variance permit applications, along with other associated covenants that might get registered against title for a property, as well as sign permit applications and temporary use permits. As you can see here on the screen, our one major project that's currently ongoing and will proceed into the 2021 budget season is the official community plan review. And with that, we're looking forward to the adoption of that by the end of 2021. As well, we have Lot A, which is a large municipally owned property currently with construction undergoing for the library site, as well as a proposal in place right now to explore the development of a youth and seniors complex, as well as other various proposals that may come in throughout time that staff will work with prospective applicants on development opportunities for that site. There's also the development of contribution reserve policies that provide us with the opportunity to collect additional revenue towards specific streams that have been identified for council use, such as affordable housing or amenities throughout the community. And lastly, ALR exclusion, which is the Agricultural Land Commission's policies that are in place for excluding specific lands that are currently deemed viable for agricultural use that otherwise, if excluded, could potentially open up further opportunities for development within the district. On the subdivision side, we have the request now for Land Development Technician 1, which is a new position within the division, and that would be funded from non-market growth, as well as a $70,000 approving officer contract who would be responsible for overseeing the issuance of preliminary layout assessments for subdivision applications and ultimately the final approvals to grant the opportunity for new lots to be created within the district. And that $70,000 contract is related to 0.81% of the property tax increase. And lastly, on the building safety side, which the team administers the building permits, plumbing permits, demolitions, and final occupancies for construction, they look through the ability to adopt the new building bylaw that we look forward to bringing forward to council in the new year, as well as ongoing building official certification to maintain qualifications and standards that are current with the building code requirements, as well as the act. If we could possibly just click the souk.ca link, that's just below the logo here. This will take us to a web page that we have on our district website. And this is just related to the current official community plan review that's underway. And if you just scroll down, we can have a bunch of information that's provided to the public. So this is a good location just to keep up to date with what's going on in the project. If there's surveys that are ongoing, the link will be posted here to gain feedback from the public, as well as our meeting schedule, just to see with the advisory committee minutes from those meetings, as well as opportunities for the public to listen in and just see further developments that are occurring with the project. So primarily right now we're in the engagement stage of gaining feedback from the public as well as stakeholders throughout the community. But this is where further developments will be posted regarding the ultimate future plan for the district of Souk. With that concludes my portion of the presentation. I will hand it off to our Director of Operations.
Thanks, Mr. Paulo. Much appreciated. I'd like to start off by thanking all the members of the public for joining us tonight. I think it's extremely important that the public is part of our engagement process and going through the budgets that we're putting forward for council consideration. The operations department consists primarily of 4 divisions, has the engineering department, GIS, Geographic Information System Department, as well as the Parks and Environmental Service Department and the Wastewater Operations Department. We're going to start off just running through some of the highlights and key functions for our engineering department. So engineering department primary functions are looking after all our design reviews and construction acceptance through development processes, subdivision development, as well as smaller even building developments. Design coordination of capital projects as well as the implementation of capital projects. Our engineering team is responsible for the planning, the implementation, and coordination with some of the key design consultants that are running forward some of the designs for our transportation as well as other infrastructure projects. Management of the public works and road maintenance contract. So that, as Ms. Gray alluded to earlier, is our primary resource for conducting a lot of the road maintenance activities involved within the district. We also deal with typical calls for service as well as public inquiries and make all efforts we can to get back to people and respond in a timely manner. Some of the capital construction project highlights that we're bringing forward for council's consideration in 2021. The first major one here is part of our adopted transportation master plan. So this plan, we're really excited about these plans. They've been in progress over the last couple of years, which have involved extensive input from not only public, the stakeholders involved, as well as council, staff, and consultants. One of the key projects we're bringing forward here is kind of the heart of the transportation master plan. It's going to involve a roundabout being constructed at Church and Throop Road, as well as expanding the intersection at Church and Highway 14 to add an extra turning lane, as well as to include active transportation. Smaller project involved in the TMP here is going to be a Brailsford connection, which is up in the Mountain Heights area, which will be connecting just to make some more consistent flow of traffic through the area where it's currently blocked off. Some of the smaller capital projects we have going on are going to consist of Murray Road drainage and design repairs for the south end of Murray Road. We have an EV charger station that's slated to be installed on Eustis. And we have $15,000 allocated for transit stop maintenance and repairs. Getting into a little bit of a bigger one, and I'm going to dive into this a little bit because I think it'll help address some of the questions from the public this evening. So part of our 5-year road paving program, we're going to be spending $300,000 this year, and this is going to be continued and extended over the next few years. When road paving is considered in the district, it's very complex situation, and it's as much as we want to accommodate the paving on all roads and some of the smaller areas as well as the rural areas, every road is taken into consideration when condition assessments are conducted, and it's put together in a complex matrix. It's going to involve analyzing the safety, the life expectancy of the road, the level of service, which includes the population served as well as the traffic volumes, and it will also analyze the consequence of failure. Once these matrices are analyzed, they basically spit out the priorities that give us direction and will ultimately lay out our paving plans for in the district. And our goal with these paving plans is to prioritize the areas that also serve the largest number of residents and provide the level of service that's desired. Typically, larger corridors will be prioritized, and as much as it's not specific to some of the smaller areas, majority of the residents within Souk will utilize some of these larger corridor projects, therefore benefiting the majority of the community. Next project will be Charters and Drennan intersection to accommodate some of the development in Souk as well as fall in alignment with our transportation corridors. $700,000 project for that. We will be going into final design with that this year, and if it's not constructed, it will be carried over into 2022. Lot A is another district lot. We're going to be working with BC Hydro to provide servicing for that lot in anticipation for the new library coming into Souk. If we just get you to go to the next slide there, Ms. Gray. So I've alluded on the capital projects we'll be constructing this year. This is an sort of a high-level overview of all the design projects we're bringing forward for council consideration in 2021. This covers, I would say, the majority of the major corridor projects that are included in the transportation master plan. Our goal with bringing all these designs forward is to make sure that all of these projects are shelf ready and will be able to meet any of the requirements of grants that come out. Typically, the rate of success of getting grants for these projects has to do with them being designed and basically ready to build immediately. So our goal is to accomplish that through 2021, so we can cover a lot of these projects through grants and reduce the amount of cost to the taxpayers to implement some of these key transportation projects required within the district. So starting from right to left, we're going to start with Phillips Road Corridor in orange there. That's going to be looking at expanding that to include active transportation. Major piece of this network is going to be the improvement to connect Phillips Road right through to Throop, which is highlighted in purple in this. And then you'll have sort of active transportation corridor upgrades to the Throop streetscape. And then, as I alluded to in the previous slide, the church roundabout, as well as the intersection improvements at Highway 14, is going to be engaged for not only design but for construction in 2021. Going over further to the left, the final aspects of this corridor is going to be looking at a possible roundabout at Otter Point, as well as the realignment of Grant Road West and completing upgrades onto the Otter Point corridor. Currently, we're at 85% design stage for the Otter Point corridor, and it is slated within the 5-year financial plan for council's consideration. Just go to the next slide, Ms. Gray. This is an overall highlight. Ms. Gray's alluded to this earlier. So for our engineering department and capital project asks, we have a total of almost $4 million, of which the majority of this is funded out of grants as well as other reserve funds. A very small portion of this is going to be $70,000, which is going to be equivalent to a 0.8% tax increase. And again, as Ms. Gray has alluded to, we try and really minimize and make maximum use of our reserve funds in these specific areas so that we don't have to look at tax increases to fund some of these key instrumental projects. Get the next slide. So the second department in under operations is going to be the GIS department. So key functions for this department, they work hand in hand with all the departments within the district. They incorporate annual property tax assessments. They complete annual reporting on all capital tangible assets, and they work and manage all the integrated asset management software and are responsible for all the data input and asset management data collection. As I've already said, they do work hand in hand with all our departments and provide a lot of mapping resources and support and referral requests. There is an overall zero budget request for this department, but just internally, some of their key 2021 project highlights are going to be working at upgrading the software on our website that will be for the public mapping interface. This is going to provide some new features that will enhance land information and some of the search tools that are going to be available for the public. We're going to be flying new aerial imagery over summer 2021, and we hope this new imagery to be incorporated and integrated into our database by the end of next year, so going into December 2021. The GIS department will also be working hand in hand with finance to incorporate asset management policy and bring forward a strategy for council consideration in 2021. Next slide, Ms. Gray. Third department under operations is going to be our sewer department, and it's an exciting department. We've recognized that we have some areas of our system that are approaching some capacities. It's not a concern right now, but the district is being really proactive in addressing some of these capacity constraints that will sort of be instrumental in addressing in order to accommodate new development and look at bringing on some additional areas within the district of Souk that's in alignment with our liquid waste management plan that was developed, I believe, in 2012. So there are three sort of capacity areas that we're looking at right now. And as I said, the district's being proactive with this. We're currently under a grant application, waiting for notification on that will address our wastewater treatment plant and essentially double the footprint of the plant doubling the capacity that we can take in. And we're going to be looking at incorporating a couple other key areas within the collection system, which will be on West Coast Road. We're hoping to hear notification of this grant in 2021, and then accordingly, we're going to roll out the design of the project and hopefully be online within a 2 to 3 year period if successful. Other sort of key functions of our wastewater department, all our staff down there are responsible for operating and maintaining an extensive treatment facility. They also work on the collection system with responsibilities for all the pump stations, all the manholes, pipe networks, low pressure systems, and gravity systems. They work and complete all the reporting, lab testing to ensure that we're meeting all regulatory compliances that are mandated to the district under our permits. And they also work hand in hand with us in capital project planning and implementation of some of these key capital projects. As well, they're also dealing with calls of service and trying to deal with public inquiries and responding to the public in a timely fashion. Some of the key projects, aside from the potential grant projects we're looking at for 2021, instrumental project here is the development of our strategic stage sewer master plan. So we're hoping to bring forward this stage master plan in 2021 and completing it through 2021, and it might even roll over into 2022. What's going to be incorporated in the master plan is we're going to look at projected modeling analysis that are based on maximum build-outs in the community growth areas that are in alignment and identified in the official community plan that Mr. Palos highlighted on earlier. We're also going to work towards projected modeling analysis based on potential large development areas within the SSA. What this is going to do is going to let us get ahead of development, plan our capital projects accordingly, and address them in a timely fashion. So we're not dealing with any capacity issues going forward in the future. Last part of the master plan, it's extremely important. We're going to be looking at feasibility studies in areas that are currently not on our collection system. So key focuses that are in alignment with our liquid waste management plan, we'll be looking at the Kaltassin as well as the Whiff and Spit area. So we're going to run through the feasibility studies in these master plans, and hopefully within the next 2 years, we'll be able to make some informed decisions and be able to communicate to the residents what kind of timeframes or costs would be involved in bringing on these areas. Future conceptual design updates and condition assessment analysis will also be included, and we will be reviewing our liquid waste management plan in conjunction with the master plan development. Second project we're looking at for wastewater will be design of one other area that's approaching its capacity, which will be a gravity main on West Coast Road from Otter Point down to Maple Avenue South. We're also going to be looking at potential solutions for odor control mitigation in some of our pump stations, and we're going to be rolling out an extensive inflow and infiltration strategy that's primary focus is to address some of the inflow that's coming into our system through a lot of the rainwater, any sort of leaky areas in our system that we can button up to address some of the capacity constraints as well. Total budget requested for the sewer department is going to be $475,000 for council's consideration. And again, this is going to be a 0% tax increase because it's going to be funded through the existing sewer parcel tax. And that concludes my presentation. The last division of operations is for the Parks and Environmental Service Department. And I'll let Ms. Hooper highlight some of our exciting projects we're going to be bringing forward in 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Parks and Environmental Services is divided into two distinct groups, both Parks Operations Group. Mr. Carter, would you mind muting? I'm getting some feedback from you. There we go. Thanks. Parks Environmental Services is divided into two distinct groups. One is the Parks Operations, where a group of staff look after the 100 assets of park assets that we have and about 20 kilometers of trails that run throughout the district. They're also responsible for seasonal adornment and other like projects. The Environmental Services looks after the development and design review and construction acceptance related to development. So that's really what means when we get new parks from developers, we make sure that they're constructed to a certain standard. We also do design coordination and capital project implementation for projects that the district initiates. We, as I mentioned, do maintenance of the district's green space assets like the roundabout and hazardous trees. We also do calls for service and public inquiries related to both parks and the environment. Ms. Gray, may I have the next slide? Parks Operations also looks after the implementation of many different capital projects. This year, we're proud to support a good number of projects. We will see an increase through the COVID Relief Fund of $82,000 for parks laborers, which helps us increase our cleaning in our public washrooms and fountains, but also allows us to respond to the increases that we're seeing as related to the acquisition of new parks throughout the district. We're also able to purchase a new parks truck, which will allow workers to remain separate in vehicles as COVID continues. We're excited to see we're hopeful that we will receive grants for the Little River pedestrian crossing, previously known as the DeManuel Creek pedestrian crossing, which will connect the Poirier and Journey Elementary schools to the Sun River and Phillips Road community. We have received a $1.2 million grant or partnership with the province of British Columbia to construct a multi-sport court box in Sun River on Phillips Road. We're also hoping to receive $572,000 to reconstruct the Bluffs staircase, which is in the Whiff and Spit area. We know that through COVID-19 that these types of assets are really important for little neighborhoods and as they allow people to get out and be active. The Soup Potholes, which is an iconic local treasure, is expected to receive a grant or hoped to receive a grant for $358,000. And this will really allow us to put a polish on an asset that we've recently inherited from the province of British Columbia. There are a few other projects that we expect to fund through non-tax sources. The first being a community-sized dog park in the Ponds Park corridor, John Phillips Park. We expect to also do a waste management strategy, which will focus on yard waste collection and large item recycling and perhaps toxic roundup. We also need to do about $75,000 in boardwalk accessible walkway repairs to repair some erosion issues that we have where the accessible walkway meets the boardwalk. We expect to plan a town center park on Lot A, also in 2021, and have about $110,000 put aside for park asset repairs and parks equipment so that we can just keep up with the day-to-day requirements of maintaining the West Coast assets that we have, such as small bridges, trails, etc. That concludes my formal presentation. I'll hand it over to Chief Mount now.
Thank you, Laura. The Community Safety Department is comprised of about 75 members. It has two distinct functions, the Fire Department and the Emergency Program. The Fire Department is a combination fire department, which means it's a blend of career staff and non-career members. The career staff is comprised of 2 chief officers, 2 captains, 3 firefighters, which one of them is on a flex schedule, and 1 full-time administrative assistant. The operations is supported by 29 paid-on-call fire suppression firefighters, and we also have 6 non-suppression logistical support to incident members. We have the benefit of a volunteer mechanic that's highly skilled as well. With respect to our calls for service, over the 5-year moving average, we respond to about 963 calls annually. These are calls which are fires of all types, from structure fires, wildfires, chimney fires, motor vehicle incidents, rescues, including the jaws of life and high angle rope rescue skills, burning complaints, hazard conditions, skilled at the hazmat operations and tech level, medical calls. These are your BC ambulance, orange, red, and purple calls, your Charlie, Delta, and Echo calls. Alarms, including commercial and residential alarms and CO alarms, and other type of public service calls, which can be anything from supporting something to do with the basement flooding, animal rescue, etc. We also handle several non-emergency type calls, about 150 to 200 a year, and these can be from car seat installs to front desk inquiries. The emergency program has an emergency operations center, which is supported by district staff and includes an emergency program coordinator and a deputy emergency program coordinator. There's emergency support services function there that is strictly volunteer with 25 members that has a lead that's the emergency support services director. We also have a neighborhood emergency preparedness program that's within the emergency program. And we have 4 skilled ham operators that are part of the Souk Emergency Radio Group. Next slide, please. Some of the key budget items for 2021 is to continue to focus on membership retention and staffing. The relief worker line item was increased from 18,000 to 61,000. And this is really returning to an actual level with not any additional firefighters being hired in 2020. As far as the retention challenges we're incurring right now, in 2006-2007, the fire department really reached a peak of about 53 members at that stage. That was an aggregate total of both career and volunteers. Right now, we're at about 36 members. And the actual tables that you see in the graphic here are showing a National Fire Protection Association study that was released in 2018 based upon data from 2014 to 2016. And this is a Canadian Fire Department profile, very similar to the RCMP data. For future considerations, as our community grows, you can see that the Souk Fire Department is a little bit behind. A population of 15,000 people, the national average is 52 volunteer firefighters and 11 career members. As you can see, we're at 29 and 7. This is a declining trend internationally that we'll be dealing with as much, so that many of our neighbors are as well. In order to support retention, we have been increasing our health and wellness budget to $10,000 this year. This will be a continued focus on our performance fitness evaluation components such as cardiology, screening and testing, and further advanced cancer screening programs also. So continuing investing in the relief worker line item and any other COVID related eligible expenses is an important part of 2021 for us. With the COVID implications, we did not have a recruit class for 2020 and likely will have a late start in 2021 as far as recruitment goes. And we'll be looking at all eligible expenses with the Restart BC grant program to support recruitment and retention. Next slide, please. In 2021, we have $20,000 allocated to a master plan and another 20 that'll be in 2022. This is to occur over 2 years. Master plan is really, it's time for us to complete this. We'll be looking in depth at things such as how the long-term staffing could look for our department over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. A review of our current paid on call implementation plan and how we can achieve 10-minute response time to benefit the building and commercial community. We'll also be looking into the master plan supporting us on what it takes to change and improve our ratings with the public fire protection classification with the fire underwriters survey so commercial businesses could achieve further discounts in insurance. A review of our long-term apparatus replacement plan is expected, as well as benefits of having a dedicated fire prevention officer and improvements to public education program. In 2021, Station 1 building maintenance, we're still in the middle of really a stage where the Rick Hansen grant, we did some work in our station and it's in an incomplete mode right now. The sprinkler system, the deferred maintenance, and the current state of demolition of Station 1 is something that needs to be looked at as the COVID situation put us in a pause mode. Design work is ongoing right now, and we expect to see a better shared boardroom space with the district staff with a multifunction emergency operations center improvements. We're expecting estimates for this for 2021 in the coming weeks. That concludes my presentation. Off to Staff Sergeant Brett.
Hey, good evening. It's Brett Senden here, Detachment Commander. Just before I get started here, I'm not sure if it's just my end, but there's other people's slides that stop that extended.
Must just be on your end, Brett, and your audio is not real clear either.
Yeah, I started this this session off on a Wi-Fi connection, which appears to have canceled out. So is it good enough that you're able to hear me, or?
Yeah, that's better for sure.
Okay, so start first slide there. Thank you very much for letting me provide this presentation today. Just a bit of a recap. District of Suc and the province of British Columbia. We provide services to East Suc, Otter Point, Jordan River, and Port Renfrew. Our detachment currently consists of 17 officers, 13 of which are funded by the District and 4 are funded by the province. We also have 4 support staff. And we respond to the complete range of files.
Brett, you're really, we're losing the audio pretty bad. It's tough to hear you. There are times when it's much better than others, so I'm not sure if you're moving around your microphone, but give it another try.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to call in on a different device.
Okay. Anyone have any good jokes?
Hey, it's Brett again. Can you hear me?
Welcome back, and yes, that sounds much better.
Yeah, I'm actually on the same device. I've got a connection issue here, so I'll do my best, and if you lose me, I apologize. And where I was at was we also conduct proactive controls, traffic enforcement, and community policing initiatives. Just to the next slide, and I apologize, it's a bit of a busy one, but it's just a little bit of information about how we're trying to keep up with the needs of the growing community. These are just District of Suc references, so just the members that are paid for by the district. They're not including the provincial members. We currently have a ratio of 1 member to 1,100 people population-wise. The provincial average is 1 to 744. So if we were looking at maintaining the status quo of what we have now, we need to be working towards having 16 by 2028. If we were to focus on trying to keep up to 1 per 1,000, which is a bit of a goal, we should already be at 14, and we should be looking at being at 18 for 2028. And if we were to be looking at the provincial average, we should already be at 19 and working towards 24 for 2028. The 2 charts on the bottom just sort of show the split of calls between the district and the provincial areas. And as you can see, we're right around this 77% average. And the municipality is actually paying for 76% of our members right now. So the call split is appropriate for the number of members that we have. Last slide. I just wanted to point out some integrated units that we participate in both financially and use to support our teams. They are partnerships with all the other police agencies in the CRD. They include the Integrated Mobile Crisis Response Team, which assists us with mental health calls. the Mobile Youth Services Team, which helps us deal with youth in crisis, and that's a joint team with the Ministry of Children and Families and other professionals. The Regional Domestic Violence Unit, the Crime Stoppers, and the Greater Victoria Police Diversity Advisory Committee. Now, all of these are funded by capita throughout the CRD. There was a time where there was a separate line item in the District of Soup budget to cover off these programs, but over time that has disappeared and they've been being paid out of the detachment's operating budget. That's not been an issue because we haven't been fully resourced. We've always had a few vacancies, so there was a little bit of extra money to pay for those types of things. But moving forward, as I do my best to make sure that we're full, I'm just concerned that we could end up in a spot where we'd find ourselves over our budget as a result of paying into these valuable committees and groups that we utilize regularly. So this year for 2021, we've put in a request just to have that as a line item in the District of Soup budget. That's it for my presentation, and I apologize for the connection issues.
Great. Thank you everyone for participating in the open house for the department heads and providing that information to the residents on the call, as well as the information that this session will be posted on our YouTube channel once it's all ready to go, so the public can view the information at any time. So I just wanted to provide a quick overview of the next steps in the budget process here before we get into the questions and answer portion of the budget open house. So as far as the next steps, this is the one part of the public engagement process. This is the second meeting for today. So the results of this information and any further comments that we've received will be presented to Council at the December 14th Council meeting, with the hope that Council will give the 2021 to 2025 5-year financial plan 3 readings at the December 14th meeting. Presumably, if that passes as is, then the next step in this process would be to adopt the financial plan, which could be happening at the January 11th Council meeting. The next steps after that would include property tax rate bylaws and a few other processes, which we need to wait until we have further information from the third parties that we collect from. So getting the budget completed internally is as soon as possible is critical in order to give staff adequate time to procure some of these larger projects and hopefully get these projects completed throughout the 2021 year. So at this point, I'll possibly stop sharing my screen and get into some of the questions we've received. I believe staff have been trying to answer some of the questions throughout the information they're presenting. So I'll maybe just review a couple of them, and if any of the residents on the call would like further information on that, now would be the opportunity to ask further questions. So I know we received a question about the Church and Throop Road and the traffic circles, which I believed Mr. Carter touched upon. And if, Mr. Carter, if you have further information to provide, just let me know.
No, thanks, Ms. Gray. I think we're good at this point, unless there was any further questions from the members of the public around those areas.
Okay, I'll just pause for a second. If members of the public want further information on that, let us know and we can provide some additional information.
Hi, it's George Hill. I was the one that put in the question about the roundabout. Where are you going to move the pedestrian crossings to? Has any thought been given to how they're going to handle the traffic during the construction? Because there is a lot of traffic for the people on Church Road and going to the schools.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I can address that. So during construction, they're going to strategically have traffic plans in place so that we can still facilitate the flow of traffic through there. Those aren't developed yet, but will be developed through the detailed design process, and we will be communicating all aspects of that to the public prior to going forward with the project. As far as sort of, I think you had touched on before one of your questions, the room of the roundabout. So there is room for it in that intersection. Part of the land being utilized for that has been dedicated to the 2182 Church Road development. And existing crosswalks, they will be incorporated for not only pedestrians, but as well as bike traffic through the roundabout, through Church and onto Throop Road. And it will be linked into the multi-use path that's currently in front of 2182 on Church, and it will continue along Church, and upgrades will be realized at the intersection as well.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Hill, did you have a follow-up question or need further information at this point?
No, I think we'll find out once we see the design, but I just don't want to see a pedestrian or bike crossing too close to the roundabout, or it's going to cause a problem. And are the pedestrian crossings going to have lighting, or are they just going to be a marked lane?
Everything's being considered right now. It's under detailed design. As we go through that design process, the designers will bring forward recommendations on what the implementation of the crossings actually look like.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hill, and thanks for submitting the question. A couple of the other questions that staff have received. I'll tackle the first one here. It's talking about more detailed information on the budget and a year-end report that compares budget to actual. And that's definitely something that staff is working towards providing further detailed information to the community as a whole, and working with our in 2021 and working with our communications coordinator position here to ensure that the information we're providing to the community can be easily understandable by the majority of the community, and as well as meets council's comfort level with providing the information. There's a bit of a difficulty between the information, the way it is presented in the budget versus the way the information is reported in our annual financial statements. So just working towards better reporting on that out to the public in 2021 is definitely one of the goals the finance department will be undertaking. I believe Mr. Carter touched on the second part of the question in regards to the North Souk question that was received, just talking about the roads and out in that area of the community. And the other question, perhaps I'll just turn it over to Mr. Palo for, which was just around the direct costs. The district's response to complaints by developers regarding the time required for approvals was to hire more staff at district taxpayer expense. It's easily justifiable to pass these costs directly to the developers. because they directly benefit from the service? Is there any reason that the costs related to staff, engineering, inspections, and development cannot be charged directly to developers rather than passing them on to all taxpayers? Hopefully, Mr. Pello, if you can maybe provide a bit more information on that, that would be great.
Certainly, Ms. Gray. So yeah, there's a number of options that that are available for covering the cost of development within the District of Sauk. So one of those methods could be the development cost charges. So applicable costs for sewers, road, water, parks, things of that nature, as well as any specific policies that we might have in place for contributions that would go towards a reserve. So that could be for affordable housing, for amenity areas, for childcare, whatever council's directive is specifically for collecting those contributions as part of the development process. But as the question had alluded to, certain costs being directed towards the developer, that is potentially one method that could be incorporated, and what that would potentially look at is having an increased application fee process. So increasing the fees for applications to apply for those, and collecting additional revenues through that process. So there's a number of different methods that can be explored, and certainly staff would take direction from council on that as to what methods we like to move forward in uncovering those costs. But presently, we like to use a combination of development cost charges and specific on-site and off-site works that are incorporated into a works and services agreement to ensure that that development is covering the costs that are necessary to be brought into the district.
Thank you, Mr. Pello. I believe the resident who submitted those questions is on the call, and just maybe take this opportunity to circle back and confirm if you have any follow-up questions or if you would like some further information.
Hi, my name is Eric Boucher. I'm the fellow that submitted that question. I also saw another, oh, and thanks very much for the presentation. I've learned a lot so far this evening. I also saw a line regarding, for instance, the hiring of subdivision technicians and staff. Again, a cost shared by all, but it would seem to me that if subdivision is going in, and clearly Sauk is growing at quite a great rate, one of the fastest growing communities, and clearly there's an appetite for development here. The developers must think it's a good place, and there are good deals to be had. So why these initiatives couldn't be funded by the developers rather than passed on to all the taxpayers, when the developers building these subdivisions are the ones that benefit? I'd like to reinforce the need to look more towards a user benefit type model on this. I have another question, it's somewhat related. Again, in the North Sauk community area, there seem to be an oasis of not too many community services. If you look at the OCP, there are no plans for parks, trails, road improvements, much of anything out here. Connie Road is unsafe to walk on at night. When we gather on the street commiserating, we often wonder whether we'd be better off in a different district, perhaps Metchosin or something like that. When the district is considering a community plan and an overall standard for community services, we'd like to be a consideration in the larger district's plans. And currently, with the Highway 14 project, which will probably reduce North Sauk into a doormat for the rest of Sauk, we're losing our bus stops, even the ability to cross the road. We're frankly not feeling a lot of the love out here. And if as part of the planning process, some consideration is given to what the taxpayers in the North Sauk region are receiving for their tax dollar, I think that attention and review would be welcome. Does the sewer plant debt, is it paid merely by the debt servicing charge? Is it paid merely by the property owners within the SSA, or is it divided amongst all taxpayers in the district? Those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay, I'll tackle maybe the funding of the sewer. Sorry, if you could maybe mute your microphone. I think perfect. Thank you. I will tackle the sewer funding question, which it is not funded by all the residents of Souk. There is this specific sewer service area, and only residents within those areas are charged the sewer parcel tax. So that cost isn't shared by any resident that is not within the current sewer specified area. Perhaps Mr. Carter can elaborate further on a couple of your other comments.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Gray. Yeah, no, all good questions, and Mr. Paolo could probably chime in afterwards and sort of complement my response on this. But in terms of sort of staffing levels and costs being put on to developers, it is really important to note that sort of non-market growth monies that are coming into the district through new developments and taxes paid from new developments. Typically, we are looking at using those funds to fill any of the new positions going forward over the next couple of years. If there's no market growth money from development, we don't need the positions. If there is money because of substantial development, we try to utilize those funds to fill those roles. In terms of the planning, maybe Mr. Paolo can help me out with that one, but to address sort of the concerns you have with the roads out there, we do our best and make all efforts to try and address keeping the roads in good order in the rural areas as well as the town center areas. And as I've sort of alluded to before, they are complex matrices that are evaluated with the level of service, the traffic volumes that are experienced on those roads. And I can honestly say that it's, although we'd like to go pave all the roads in Souk, it's just not realistic. And it's not only North Souk that experiences that. Some of the smaller collector roads, even within the town center, are not being able to give the highest priority to provide overall benefit to the public based on the desired level of service. In terms of sort of amenities, we would love to put amenities everywhere. Again, it comes down to the level of service and being able to put those amenities in the more dense areas within the Souk core. And connecting those networks via parks, active transportation methods, and that is where a lot of the funding lies to fund some of these projects, and priorities are given to them more so in the core area for those reasons. I hope I've been able to address some of your questions there. And Mr. Paolo, if you had anything you'd like to add in on that.
Sure. No, that was a great response, Mr. Carter. And just to kind of put the planning context to that, as I mentioned in my presentation, that the official community plan is currently underway. So as we start to see common themes starting to emerge, a lot of what's being discussed amongst the community right now is the transition between an urban town core area to a more rural landscape the further you get out. So once we're able to formulate a more specific identity for the district as a whole, we'll be able to have policies in place that identify more long-term visions for these areas, and specific projects within those areas can be adapted for the needs of the communities. But as Mr. Carter had discussed, as part of the matrix in determining a lot of these capital projects, they'll all be based on those specific community needs. But certainly as part of the planning process going into 2021, the official community plan review will be a key aspect in helping shape a lot of these communities moving forward.
I have one comment, Rachel, for Mr. Boucher.
For sure, perfect.
The fire department hasn't forgotten about North Souk with respect to the road realignment. We have been working with the ministry on a current water supply tank that we have on near Manzer Road, and the discussions with them is a preference with the fire department to benefit residents closer to the 17-mile and Connie Road is to have a improved water supply where the proposed interchange would be. And the likely result of that would be, the ability to test for a commercial rating of water shuttle services, and also revisiting our current Superior Tanker Shuttle service polygon that provided discounts to residents on Connie Road, and that'll likely mean that more residents will benefit from negotiating with their insurance providers on Nagle Road and Connie Road as well. So there's some pluses there for you.
And just one more thing, in terms of the involvement, it's a true goal of staff in the district as well as council to get as much public involvement and engagement as we can in the planning of a lot of these transportation projects. And like I sort of highlighted earlier, we've just, council's just adopted our Transportation and Parks Master Plan, and we've tried to get as much community and public input and involvement in developing those plans over the last year, so we could really structure a plan that did meet the needs of all community members, not just ones from isolated areas or different sections within the town.
And just one comment from me, if I could, Mr. Boucher, thank you for your questions and your participation this evening. But some of the amenities that we have, pathways, parks, those types of things, they are gifted to the municipality through the development process. So we don't see a lot of development in North Souk, and I'm not sure how much of an appetite you folks have for development out there, but just a comment that typically those things are we acquire through the development process.
Perfect, thank you. I guess I see there's one more hand up, and just in the interest of time, maybe circle back to, sorry, I don't see your name here, SB, who has their hand up there if you have a specific question.
That's me. Yes, I did. I have two questions, actually. The first is for Mr. McInnes. It was sometime last month, I think, the Climate Action Committee action plan was discussed at council. And at that, there was discussion of adding some work related to climate action to the Economic Development Officer's portfolio. Do you have anything in addition to say about that?
Absolutely, and if you, unfortunately we didn't have sound on the video that we played from the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, but hopefully you followed along with the text in the video. Okay. So that really it is more of a sustainability, traditional sustainability model than more focused just on climate action. But the Community Economic Development Framework takes the environment, the economy, and social issues into play. So part of the work plan from the Climate Action Committee has to do with the big things for GHG reduction, really are buildings and transportation. And our new building bylaw was focusing on early adoption for step code. That will come back to council early in the new year. We'll see where that goes. And our transportation master plan, our Parks and Trails master plan, and our focus on multimodal transportation really is an effort to be true to GHG reductions and trying to institutionalize some of the stuff that was in that work plan into the way that we do things. Hopefully that'll answer your question, Ms. Belford.
Thanks so much. It does. And just one other quick question regarding the GIS department. I wondered if in the accounting of assets, natural assets in the Souk region are included.
Not at this time, and there's lots of work going on in the natural asset world, and it's really is a paradigm shift. I think that we've been taught that engineered solutions to many things are the highest level of solution, and we're starting to understand that that's just not the case, that natural assets sometimes are a better solution than engineered assets. I'm sure Mr. Carter probably wouldn't agree with me, but that's my position.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you for the questions, and maybe just follow up with Mr. Boucher. Did you have any further questions? I just have one more question that was received from the public I was going to get into, and then we were almost going to wrap this up, I guess.
No, I wanted to thank you very much for those responses. I appreciate that.
Perfect, thank you. And just to highlight, at any time, any member of the public would like further information on the budget or to get, geek out over numbers with me, I'm more than happy to have conversations with the public and provide any information that I can to provide some clarity on the inputs to this budget and what the long-term visioning would be for the 5-year financial plan. So I'll just maybe touch on one more question that was received by possibly someone who's attending the call here. And the question was, provide some information on the plans for supporting the arts and arts organizations in Souk. So the answer that I have right now for that question is, as I stated earlier in the presentation, Souk provides over $300,000 of funding to various community organizations through their budget, and that includes $65,000 in the annual community grant program, various line items that have received funding for numerous years through Souk, and then for certain organizations, they have entered into formal community service agreements with the district. Most of those agreements currently are expiring in December of 2022. And in January of this year, Council adopted a amended community grants and sponsorship policy. So the plan for this year would be for the staff to engage with the current line item recipients, and when the community grant applications start being received by the district, is to engage with those organizations and ensure that staff have thorough, complete information, so that when these reports and information is presented to Council, Council will have the full information necessary to make the decisions on what the appropriate funding stream for these organizations would be, whether that be an annual community grant process, or maintaining line item status, or entering into formal service agreements with Souk. So definitely in 2021, with the adoption of the new amended community grants and sponsorship policy, staff will be further engaging with these organizations just to ensure and that Council has all the information to understand what kind of supports they need and how the district can possibly help them achieve their goals. I will leave that at that there, just looking at the time. If there's any further questions, I'll just pause for a second here if anyone has any further questions or would like further information.
I would just like to recognize that we do have Councillor Lajeunesse on the line tonight, so thank you very much for joining in. Hopefully you found it valuable as well.
Okay, well, with that, not hearing any further questions, I just wanted to highlight that the 2021 budget open house, both sessions from today will be posted on Souk's website at souk.ca/budget. And if you want to learn more about how you can participate in further sessions like this, please visit souk.ca/engage. As we know, with the COVID pandemic here, engaging with the community in person is definitely going to be a challenge for the next while. So, right now our website is a valuable source of information for the public on how to find out information. And as I said, at any time, if anyone would like further information on some accounting numbers, I'm happy to crunch numbers and talk budgets with anybody at any time. So I think if there's nothing further, I will leave that there and thank everyone for attending, and have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.